Hi, I'm Bob Batcher, Executive Director of Prime Plus Senior Centers, and this is Prime Time with Bob. Boy, I start these quite often saying I'm with an old friend, but I think I shared an hour with Terrance Afer Anderson. How you doing?
Pretty good, sir. How are you?
Yeah, those hours on TV 48. How many years did you do Health Watch?
I did Health Watch for 16 years.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
15 for me on Norfolk Perspectives, and I still kind of fondly look at that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now, okay, so you retired.
Yes.
Did you take up the Scrabble board and just kind of take it easy?
No, I didn't at all. Just a few months before my retirement, I was awarded a fellowship with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the Culture of Health Leaders Program. It was a 3-year fellowship. And it was a perfect kind of situation for me because the primary focus of the fellowship, the Culture of Health Leaders, is dealing with health equity, diversity, and inclusion. And that is something that was critically important to me in my work at the Norfolk Department of Public Health.
Yeah, Terrence, you were always at I hate to say this, cutting edge of really prostate cancer and health awareness among African American men and women. Um, so it makes sense that you would move on after retirement into that arena. Educate me. What's going on now? It appears that COVID has brought to the awareness of the American public, there was a tremendous divide
Yeah.
between the healthcare that I got and the healthcare that you may have possibly got.
Yeah, there is a genuine disparity made more conspicuous with the great interest and awareness about COVID-19. I saw a report recently that the lifespan of African American men since the onset of COVID-19 was reduced by some 3 years. And we've just been dealing with that since early March of last year. And it did shine a light on an array of disparities that impact the African American community. And I mean, we all lament those disparities, but glad that there is a greater awareness that they do in fact exist. And those disparities exist for a lot of different reasons. We call them the social determinants of health. Someone's ethnicity, their age, where they live, their income, whether they are insured or not, or underinsured. A lot of these things are contributing factors. In addition to that, there's something called cultural competency, where oftentimes a white physician might make assumptions, stereotypical assumptions about African American people, the individual patients that they have, grouping them together based on stereotypes rather than treating them on an individual basis. In addition to that issue of cultural competency, a lot of African Americans, because of historical events like the Tuskegee experiment and the Henrietta Lacks immortal cell line thing, there's becoming more increasing awareness in the African American community of those atrocious acts, and that has bred some mistrust of medical institutions. So the challenge for clinicians, as well as people that are doing research and folks in the community that have genuine concern about addressing those disparities, the onus is to increase awareness of the disparities and how they can be addressed from a more proactive space. I think I shared with you that I was in I moderated a panel discussion on yesterday, and one of my speakers, one of the panelists, was a woman that is the president and CEO of Common Health Action. Common Health Action, her agency became with the National Collaborative for Health Equity, Common Health Action, and the collaborative created the National Programming Center that administered the Culture of Health Leaders grant program from the Robert Johnson Foundation. And she's a phenomenal woman, but as we were closing on yesterday, she noted that Black bodies are not broken. that there is a lot of concern that these disparities are impacting African Americans because African Americans are genetically inferior and have broken bodies. That is not the case. There are things that contribute, systemic things that have historically and still today contribute to the disparate incidences of disease amongst African American men and women and children.
Now, it's been a few years since both of us have been retired. Are you seeing the gap in understanding closing? I mean, a couple of weeks ago, you were the guest speaker at the Norfolk Rotary Club. And I got to be honest with you, and primarily the Rotary Club is like me, saying, wow, I didn't realize that. And you're doing these panels. Is there a growing awareness that something has to be done?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And the key component of that awareness being instructive and of some benefit is that clinicians are becoming more aware of the disparities, as well as community leaders. So that is something that is increasing, and of course. It needs to be the same kind of awareness needs to be done on par with the awareness in the African American community and the communities of color. But it is, in fact, increasing. And that is why, as tragic as this COVID-19 situation is, it has illuminated the disparities that impact the African American community.
Well, and I think, too, it's not just a race thing. When you've got, is it politics or is it science? And this whole divide between the two, who do you listen to? And it's been a nationwide conversation about our health. Okay, I'm going to switch gears.
Okay.
Because you have been in my life, you've introduced me to a journey of getting good information out and an understanding through, some might say, entertainment, through the stage. So yeah, when you were doing Health Watch, you kind of played with the playwright and stuff, and you got some stuff out on stage, but you've been doing that full time now, haven't you?
Well, I haven't been doing it full time.
Well, nothing's full time because you got to get Scrabble in there somewhere because you're
yeah,
retired.
Yeah, my only Scrabble that I get that type of R&R comes from when I go for long walks in the woods, and I love walking First Landing State Park and the Nolan Trail on the peninsula. But I am currently working on a documentary on the historic renovations at my church, and let me just backpedal a little bit. We all went in the fellowship program. We all had to come up with a culminating strategic initiative to show how we have used the information and the education that was provided for us to develop a proactive approach to addressing these disparities that I mentioned. And I came up with something called the Black Walnut. The Black Walnut is a film, a documentary film. I call it a featurementary rather than a documentary because it's done like a feature film. And the principal character is a fictitious character that I created so that I could make sure that I was addressing everything that impacted the prostate cancer disparity. But the documentary aspect comes from, there are 9 prostate cancer survivors appearing in this film as actors. And most of them were portraying themselves. So, and I made that transition from the health department into the fellowship program, still finding opportunities to stoke my creative urges and by addressing critical health issues. Now, with my church is the only African American basilica in the nation. That's the Basilica of St. Mary the Immaculate Conception.
Awesome stuff going on there.
Incredible. We found a tunnel. We found 2 tunnels underneath the church. We've come to find that the church was built on top of a cemetery. The majority opinion was that cemetery was an African American cemetery. We found that there was a woman that was a spy during the Civil War. Her name was Mary Lou Vest. There was an article on the Sunday's paper about Mary Lou Vest. She attended my church, and her.
You didn't know her personally, right?
No, I'm not quite that old. I came around just a decade or so later. but Mary Lou Vest, before St. Mary's was built, there was St. Patrick's, and St. Patrick's was built in 1842, destroyed by fire in 1856. It was destroyed by fire because there was a large population of African Americans that attended the church, enslaved and free. Black folks were getting married at that church in the 1840s and early 1850s. And there was some interracial marriage going on. So there was a group called the Know Nothings that took great offense to all of that Black activity at the church, and they burned it to the ground in 1856. And then St. Mary's was built in 1858. Mary Lou Vest, she got married at St. Patrick's. So her history with the church goes way back. And
Wow.
if you saw the article in the Virginia Pilot yesterday, Troy, that was a few days ago now when this airs. Troy Velos is a special collections librarian at
He's an
the state.
awesome, awesome
He,
guy.
he is indeed. And we have stayed in great touch as I've been working on this documentary. And he found recently that Mary Lou Vest purchased a 10-year-old boy who was a slave. And there's great suspicion that she purchased him to protect him from his master. Chances
Wow. You got
are,
to do what you got to do, right?
oh yeah, and we suspect that there was a bit of that going on. Because she attended St. Mary's, she no doubt attended St. Mary's as well. But when you think about that tunnel, one of the tunnels that was found underneath, we believe there's great belief that it was a major part of the Norfolk Southern as the Underground Railroad. The young boy that Mary Lou Vest purchased at the age of 18, around the age of 18, he became a conductor on the Underground Railroad. And that he likely attended the church, and the church has those two tunnels, one of them. I mean, it's just fascinating.
Well, and Terrance, kind of what we were talking about, a new understanding that the renovation of St. Mary's was not an African-American thing. It was a true community thing. The whole community
Oh yes, oh
has
yeah,
come
yeah,
together
absolutely.
to
Yeah,
celebrate that.
yeah. There that's one thing that I think is little known about race relations during times of slavery and immediately post-slavery. There were a number of instances where it became very obvious that a portion of the white population in Norfolk had real issues with slavery.
Mhm.
And everything that they would do, they did it kind of under wraps, okay, to assist Black folks. There was a man who was a boat captain on the Norfolk Harbor, whose son wanted to follow. This is a free man, and this is the early 1800s. He was a boat captain on the Norfolk Harbor, Black man. When his son wanted to follow in his father's footsteps, they changed the maritime laws so that you had to be a citizen to be a boat captain, and neither he or his son were citizens. So the city refused, or the state or whatever the Maritime Association refused to give his son his license. But a group of white men rallied for him and were able to have his son get his license. And there's a number of instances like that that people are not aware of, you know.
I got about 30 seconds left.
Okay.
You've been toiling a long, long time in the field of education and providing information. Where do you see us going from here?
Uh,
30 seconds of wisdom from Terrance.
okay. We say us being the city, the state, the country.
The community, yeah.
Okay. I think that there's a great deal of work to be done that really needs to be done in the community. And I think all one needs to do is to look at what's going on in the St. Paul's corridor to realize that there is so much more work that needs to be done. And I know that that's saying a mouthful as we close, but that is something that is very important to me because my church is there,
Yep.
because I'm very familiar with that community, having spent some
Well,
time.
and I always grew up that many hands made little work. And so if we bring together all hands, then we can come up with a really bright future, right?
I concur.
Thank you, sir. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad you didn't retire.
I retired formally, but I'm working harder than I was before.
There you go. Terrance,
Yeah,
thanks a lot. Let's keep this conversation going, okay?
I would love to. So thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye
Stay
now.
safe and stay connected, and see you later. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.